tracking travel through coronavirus session here at WTM Virtual. I'd like to thank you all for your patience there and for that 2 minutes that we took, 2 minutes silence at 11 a.m. this morning for Armistice. Thank you, and our friends at Reed Exhibitions for inviting TTG Media to host this session with you today. We're most excited to introduce this illustrious panel to you this morning, which is drawn from across travel. But before we get into that, I'd just like to share a short presentation with you that will set the scene a little bit on what we're trying to do this morning. We're trying to talk about the experiences that the trade in the UK and Ireland has been through so far in 2020. But we're also going to be looking forward to the opportunities and the positives that we can find, as we go into 2021, and we look for some leadership actually from some great travel businesses and some great pointers as to exactly what happens next. So to begin with, I'm just going to share my short presentation with you on the TTG Travel Agent Tracker. So the Travel Agent Tracker is something that TTG set up in March this year. Like many businesses, we had an early indication of how we felt 2020 might play out when some of our own customers as a media business in the Far East began being affected by the virus. And at that time, we thought a good thing to do would be to set up a barometer of the travel trade in the UK and Ireland and monitor how this terrible pandemic would affect sales throughout 2020 and into the new year. So we set up the Travel Agent Tracker, and the tracker very simply sought to every week take the temperature, if you like, take a barometer of the trade as to whether agents were taking inquiries, making sales, what destinations that people were interested in, even in the midst of this crisis, what sort of holidays were holding up, and what sort of future that those agents were looking forward to. So very briefly, I'll just take you through this just to set the scene really. But our research in April and July, looking at that table, the pink charts represent those agents that were taking inquiries. The purple bars there represent those agents who were making sales. So it's as simple as that. And no one needs reminding how the first lockdown in April absolutely decimated business, not only, of course, for us in the travel industry, but for the country. And that really dug into inquiries and sales, of course, among travel agents. But if you look at that graph, I think it's really interesting, actually. Up to July, we're seeing an increase steadily coming as lockdown wore on, coming out of lockdown, and lots more agents taking inquiries. That was flatter between June and July, but sales were really starting to step up. And I know our panel will have some thoughts on this and their own story of this year. So sales, around this summer, if you remember, not easy to remember now, of course, but going back then, there was some more optimism. Flights were starting to some destinations, people were starting to go away. Coming into the last 4 months, right up to the present day, we can see that inquiries and sales among agents this year kind of peaked for us, and according to our regular research, in September, a peak in inquiries, a peak in sales around that glowy period pre the second lockdown and the second wave that we appear to be in the midst of now. And that peak falling down until November. Last week, no one needs reminding that travel agencies are closed, international travel is all but banned, and that's obviously resulted in a huge shortfall in sales now. But inquiries still sort of holding up, and actually plenty of dialogue still going on with the trade, which I think is optimistic. It gives us cause for optimism in the future. There's plenty of evidence we have that people are still researching holidays during lockdown, still dreaming of where they're going to go as soon as they can take those shackles off. And it's almost becoming a cliche already, this point about pent up demands. But I know it's there because I feel it myself, and I certainly can't wait to travel again. So just in terms of the last month, before we went into the second lockdown, the kind of destinations that people were booking, the most popular destinations, in this second half of the year, agents were telling us that they were selling a lot of Caribbean, and I know a few people who have taken Caribbean breaks in recent months, and of course one of the regions with the smallest incidences of the virus, fortunately. So that market's held up. This is Spain, and obviously Spain perennially popular, but despite the brunt of the virus being received, over there, still plenty of interest from the UK and Ireland in the Spanish market, and in other Mediterranean markets. Greece has been up and down this year, but still as strong as ever. And I thought I'd just drop in this very lovely, almost Mediterranean shot of a harbour in Cornwall, because plenty of evidence that certainly this summer, we know there were lots of holidays in the UK, but that's had a bit of an impact for the trade as well, and we've seen some unlikely tour operators starting to sell UK product. Is that a trend that will continue into 2021 as we go on? And briefly, the holiday types that have been holding up, and we'll hear from our panel as to whether they agree with this. Weddings and honeymoons, and we don't mean now, obviously, and so many weddings have been cancelled this year, but going into the future, it's those big occasions that people are still planning, for whether it's a year down the road, 18 months down the road, and that they feel they can have the confidence to book those big occasion type holidays into the future. And let's hope that the recent news on the vaccine, and let's hope that continues to improve that sort of news, and surely it will have an impact on those big occasion-led holidays in the future. The perennial beach holidays always scores highly on our tracker as people plan for the future. No surprise there. And just a surprising one that we've seen in our research over the past 2 or 3 weeks, of course, has any sector been hammered like the cruise sector through the pandemic? Probably not, but we have seen a rise in inquiries among cruise fans and among people interested in taking the cruise. I'm sure there are some great offers out there at the moment from cruise lines, looking to drive interest in the market, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that from our panel too as we go on. So the big question remains in all of this conundrums: where does all this go next? How do these graphs continue to play out in the remainder of 2020 and into 2021? Now, I am delighted, as I said at the beginning, to have 3 quite different representatives from different areas of the trade in the UK and Ireland to bring their perspective to this debate. Now, I will very briefly introduce you, and of course, with this kind of format, we never know if we're going left or right or up or down, but I don't know who's there, but for me, I'm looking at Richard Sofa. Now, Richard is the commercial director at TUI UK and Ireland, and thank you, Richard, for joining us this morning. Also, just under Richard, for me, is Lisa Fitzell. Lisa Fitzell is managing director of Elegant Resorts, so representing Elegant Resorts and If Only. So very much the luxury market in all this, and there are plenty of observers and industry commentators that will say it's the luxury market that has the best chance of coming back quicker. So let's see if the panel agrees. And just down to my right, very pleased to have Mr. Miles Morgan, a very well-known figure in the trade, particularly in the Southwest, where he is the proud owner of the award-winning Miles Morgan Travel. And how many agencies is it now, Miles, across the Southwest?
18 down.
18 agencies. So a really good barometer, actually, from Miles, as an incredibly strong and well-known agency in the Southwest, what his experiences are at the moment. So we're going to dig into this topic. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel here. We're just looking to take the temperature of where we are and where we're going into 2021. Let's find those opportunities, those positives for this beleaguered industry. Let's throw to you, Lisa, just to begin with. Tell us, 2020, how has it been for you?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, that's for sure. So with highs and lows. Luckily, our owners who bought us in 2015 haven't ever taken any cash out of the business. So, the dividends haven't been touched. So, we've actually been quite strong from a cash perspective, but like everybody, we've needed to manage that really, really tightly. There's been so many tough decisions that we've had to make during the way, which, has been really, really hard. We've lost staff like, everybody has. But, I'm just so proud of how the team have come together. It's been quite phenomenal, really. Everyone's just really pulled together, adapted to everything that we've thrown at them. And we've just really focused on the customer and our agents throughout it. So, and they've just excelled in delivering just, the most incredible service, really. So that's been fantastic. And then we've just adapted to everything that, from the beginning when we went into lockdown, it was all about nobody was booking holidays. So it was just about keeping customers and agents engaged. So, we had a lot of video content that we put out there. There was a lot of immersive content that we were getting from our suppliers, like live yoga lessons in resorts and cookery classes. And so we went for a phase of doing that. And then when we could feel that people were starting to want to travel again, just before July, we had a whole elegant price promise that we put together with about 75 suppliers, where they guaranteed that the price wouldn't be better than now. And that was a huge success. And we did more sales in July than we did last year, which, in terms of revenue, not bookings. But we saw some really big one-off bookings in July. So,
that's fantastic, because sales were actually up year on year in July.
Yeah, they were for us, which was amazing. We had some, big whoppers, we call them. So, some project bookings for a month in Barbados and, some really lovely bookings. So, so that was great. And then we had the topsy-turvy corridors in, out, craziness going on. So I think consumer confidence was completely different by the end of August, so then that was another sort of downward sort of spiral during that time. So, so during that time, it was really about consumer confidence and agents really wanting some sort of safety on booking. If I'm going to book now, am I going to get my money back? So we were just extremely flexible. So, clients could pay their balances till the very, very last minute. We allow people to amend up to 14 days before for free. You can have a refund, if 30 days before departure. And so we put a lot of this sort of out there, which we've wrapped up into something called Elegant Promise. And that still continues, actually, because we're now in this stop, and people need to feel that they're not going to put some money down and not get it back ultimately. So a real year of ups and downs so far, but learning a lot as a business, and of course staying as close as you can to the customer. Exactly.
And Richard, let's hear about TUI's experiences. Of course, TUI rarely out of the news, not only in TTG but in the consumer press as well. Tell us a little bit about the story of TUI's 2020.
Yeah, sure. And I think, Lisa hit on a lot of the key, I guess, emotions and scenarios that I'm sure Miles and the rest of the industry would kind of, agree with. It's been a roller coaster. It's been tough. It's been challenging. Teams have had to really work hard together. And of course, for many, many businesses, they've had to take advantage, as we did, of the furlough scheme, which has then stretched resources. It's meant that teams have had to work particularly hard across that. And, it's been clearly a situation that none of us ever expected to find ourselves in. And again, I think Lisa said the word adapting and being flexible. We found ourselves, just like every other business, but particularly, as an industry, in a scenario that has hugely impacted us, but has constantly changed from day to day. And I think the thing that really hit me very early on, from the first days of the crisis, if you like, was the way in which it moved so quickly. A decision you would take on the Monday, very quickly you might need to reverse on the Tuesday, because it was just moving so quickly. And it took certainly, a number of weeks really to get a grip of, I guess, the magnitude and the severity of the situation. Of course, with a business like TUI, being the market leader for the UK, we've got huge volumes of customers. So, that volume in itself, we were taking at some points 1 million calls a day into the contact center. So, whilst we're a huge business, we were never expecting to deal with that amount of volume. So we had to learn very quickly. We had to adapt very quickly. We had to create systems and processes almost overnight to be able to deal with customer contacts and be able to deal with the uncertainty, and to give, again, just as Lisa said, real flexibility for customers in an ever moving situation. So I think roller coaster is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I guess a cliche I often use for my business at TTG. We're a smaller business, so we can be very nimble. We can make quick decisions and act fast. I guess this is a year when even the biggest businesses, have had to be very, very nimble. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that's been one of the biggest learnings, but also I think it's something that we've actually done particularly well. And it's still going on today. You've only got to look at the decision the government made to open up the Canaries, and we were able to put flying back on 2 days later for the Saturday, then only 10 days later to be undone by the lockdown. And so it's meant you've constantly had to make quick decisions because you need to implement them. And customers, whilst they're resilient and they're patient, they obviously have got their money tied up in their holidays and they want to know what's going on. So, every business, they've had to really move and react quickly, and they've needed to do that for their customers.
Yeah. Sure. Now, just coming over to you, Miles. I know you're a business that prides itself on being very close to its customers. In fact, I think you were doing shopping for some of your customers, weren't you, right at the outset of the crisis? Tell us a little bit more about your story in 2020 and and what you've learned so far this year.
Well, I think the summary of the whole thing is it's been absolutely awful. I don't think anybody would say anything different. I think from the outset back in March, I think the way I always look at things is, where's the opportunity here? We're in the middle of an absolute mess. Yeah. But equally, the first thing I looked at is, where's the opportunity? And I spent 14 years trying to educate customers about the value of booking through a travel agent on the high street, face to face. All of a sudden, it gave me the biggest opportunity ever to prove the value in doing that and making that decision. And so, we spent a lot of time talking to customers. I was doing regular videos for customers, and we really did genuinely look after every single person that had a change, a refund, because we had one eye on the future. At the end of this, which will happen at some point, we want our business to be in a stronger position than we started. And so, it might sound mad that when you're in the middle of all this to look for opportunity, but actually that was our attitude. Where's the opportunity? Wow, I spent 14 years trying to say the value of booking on the high street. All of a sudden, wow, it's landed in my lap and I've got a real chance to prove it. And what we've seen over the course of the summer is some companies, I won't name them, have not behaved particularly well and have not reacted well to the situation. That equally means that there are customers in the market looking for a home to book their holiday. And so that's where the opportunity lies. So whilst it's been absolutely awful, it's an opportunity world where you can come out of this stronger than you went in. And if you've got the right attitude, you can do it. And
It's been very important to manage costs, hasn't it? And to really lock down the business as much as you can, to get through and then take advantage of the increased opportunities.
It has, but I think people spend too much time looking at that element of their business. For me, keeping your costs down, that was always a non-negotiable. So don't even spend any time thinking about that. You've got to do that. That's an absolute gimme. So I think it's the stuff on top. I mean, if you look at the way it's played out more latterly, what I've looked at the way some people have behaved, they've done what I've called the 2 H's. They've hibernated and hoped. And I think hibernation and hope is a surefire recipe for disaster. And they might think just cutting costs and keeping an eye on costs secures their business. It doesn't. You still have to be proactive. You've still got to be on the front foot to win in the new world.
Yeah, if you hibernate, you risk being forgotten, I guess. It's a competitive world out there, and someone else will soon come into play.
Totally.
Yeah. Let's just move the conversation on a little, looking ahead then. We've sort of set the scene a little bit with where we are. And by the way, we've got a couple of questions already coming through. And if you have any questions out there, do send them in, and we'll probably spend the last 10, 15 minutes of this session having a look at those questions. So we'll come back to those in a bit. But yeah, looking ahead, this area, you've all talked about the importance of the customer, looking after the customer in 2020. How are you marketing yourselves now with the customer? How are you engaging that customer to get excited about booking? That's a difficult question right now, in the middle of lockdown. But as Miles has articulated, life goes on. And how are you engaging with the customer and perhaps trying to rebuild their confidence in traveling again? Let's hear from you, Richard, as market leader, and let's come to Lisa after that. Richard.
Sure, yeah, I mean, absolutely right. I mean, the great news is bookings for next year are really positive, and they were positive before the pandemic. They look very, very strong. And of course, unfortunately, people that haven't been able to holiday this year have transferred those holidays to next year in most cases. So that's a really positive news to start with. And I think the thing that we're really, really seeing is, customers want to have assurances. They want to be able to travel with confidence. But what we absolutely know is the UK public desperately loves its holiday. So there is demand there. People are desperate to go away. We've seen that every single time a travel corridor has opened up or there's been positive news, like with the vaccine, the bookings increase. People want to fill the aircraft and go abroad. So it's a really, really positive outlook. I think what we as the leading operator have got the responsibility to do is to lead the market and show the way. And that is about making sure that the experiences that customers can have are guaranteed. And actually what we're seeing is a real resurgence and interest in the package, making sure that customers have got their end-to-end experience wrapped up, it's covered, it's organized for them. And we're definitely seeing, people, be really interested in not just the package, but 4 or 5 star, all-inclusive, longer durations. People are definitely, thinking about making sure that when they go on holiday, all of their needs are going to be catered for. They want something that is going to give them almost that guarantee. And as Miles said as well, what's been important is to work with customers, understand the flexibility of the needs that they want. But what we see is still underlying really, really strong demand.
Yeah, just continuing that theme then, a big chunk of your customer base are the older customers, aren't they? The over 70s, maybe a couple of holidays a year out in Cyprus or those kind of locations. How on earth do you rebuild their confidence? How do you get them back on a plane, when they've been the demographic that's been most badly hit by what's gone on this year?
Yes, it's a great point. And much like Lisa said, we came out with our own promise, the TUI promise, and that was our kind of stamp of guarantee of not just the experience that you're going to have into destination, but the standard of the health and safety regime that will be in place, across the aircraft, from, the HEPA filters, but all the way through the journey into the hotels, the standard of cleanliness and the levels of I guess, guarantees that the customers can expect. I think there's some challenges for some parts of that market. And I think, potentially, that can only be really recovered with either the vaccine or more of a stringent testing regime. And I think, unfortunately, the government have been too slow to really kind of push that forward for the industry and I guess operators have tried to take an attempt to lead. And I think the Canary Islands had started to be quite successful with that. And we had, in a winter period, seen great demand return to that, which is a destination at this time of year tends to have a much older demographic of customers travel. And like I said, those customers want to travel. They want to have the experiences. And I think we've done a good job so far of giving them those guarantees. But we're going to come out of this, but we're not going to come out of it by Christmas. It's going to roll into next year. So definitely the industry needs to continue to work very, very hard to have very high standards.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, isn't it? You know, re-educating the consumer, you know, and slowly getting them excited again and rebuilding that confidence with those health and safety protocols, you know, to the fore. Lisa, let's develop this point a little bit, you know, from Elegant Resorts and If Only's point of view. Now, how are you re-engaging customers? Is there a particular message that you're promoting in your marketing? How are you getting customers excited about the idea of traveling in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, in the last few weeks, it's, you know, as I said, we've adapted all the way through. It's really been about quarantine-free holidays. And that's been fairly successful in getting pickup of late bookings. So that's definitely had some traction, you know, in the last few weeks. And then security with Elegant Promise. A lot of suppliers have also, like One and Only have come out with something this week where if you're tested positive for COVID, or if there's health concerns in destination, or if the government advice changes, you can have a full refund right up until departure, which is great. Right. You know, that helps us deliver that sort of security. Yeah. But I think what's really sort of helped customers is personal experiences. So we've done a lot of communications on people's feedback from recent holidays. Including my own and staff's holidays that we did in the summer. We've had some really great video content. Quay in the Caribbean did a whole video from somebody leaving their house to actually going to being at the resort, and the whole step-by-step process of going to the airport and washing their hands and, you know, and getting on the plane, and this is the plane, and this is me getting off at Barbados, and this is me getting on the private jet. And it was that's really good. And Coral Reef and Barbados have recently done one. We need to give people, you know, we need them to visualize what it looks like, what the new world looks like. People that,
and the reality is it looks pretty similar to how it looked before.
It does. It's just the new world of getting used to it all, really. Yeah. And then next week we have our first live event for our Chairman's Club, which is our high net worth customers, and we're taking them to Eden Rock in St. Bart's. So we're sending out some champagne beforehand, and they'll have a glass of champagne and they'll walk through the resort, which is just opened.
Wow.
You know, they'll be in lockdown, so it's cold and wet and miserable outside, isn't it? So, you know, hopefully we can just bring a little bit of live sunshine into their house, and that will hopefully wet their eyes.
So that's online on Zoom.
Yes, it's live on Zoom.
I thought that was really happening. The way you painted that picture for me, it sounded great. I was going to ask you for a ticket.
Yeah, no. You can come and I mean, on. So, you know, but hopefully if it's successful, we'll do more of those. We want to do that with agents as well, because, you know, they've had such a tough time, and I know that everyone is so busy. That is the problem. We've got maximum amount of staff on furlough, and we're still amending bookings for November. So it's been hard to engage with the agent more because they're so busy. But we want to, you know, try and bring in some sort of, you know, live training from in resorts and stuff for them as well. So
yeah. No, it's interesting to hear you saying that. Then, you know, so part of rebuilding confidence is visualizing, is video, this constant messaging. But also the agents that you know can really come into play here and can really tell that story effectively to the consumer. And no doubt that's something that Miles would agree with. You know, and I think developing that theme that you mentioned before, Miles, about stressing the importance, you know, of the high street agent during this. You know, would you agree the high street agent has a crucial role here to play in terms of rebuilding consumer confidence?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're all really lucky with is we don't have an issue with demand. You know, as Richard said, demand for holidays will be higher than ever at the moment. So the job we have to do as an agent is slightly different to the one we used to do. So, we spent a lot of time on training and education for staff so they fully understand the policies that Richard has got, Lisa has got, in terms of the ability for customers to change bookings, pay balances late, and the complete flexibility. And our focus has been around the staff having knowledge of those really well to sell them to customers. And at the same time, around a focus of what we've called it internally, beating the V word, because the view that I've got is that as soon as the vaccine, and of course we've had the announcement on Monday, tentative announcement on Monday, as soon as that properly gets the green light, demand will go up. And as Richard knows, behind the scenes, all his systems, as they see the demand going up, will put prices up, because that's the way it works. It's supply and demand. And so a lot of our focus with clients has been, book now, secure it at an amazing price. You've got all these guarantees as well that says if you want to change it, adapt it, move the date, you don't get charged like you used to do. And so there's a whole sales piece to do. And not every customer is in a position to take advantage of that or want to take advantage of that, but an awful lot will. And the thing that's so great is the ones that do are going to look at the price of that holiday maybe in late January, February, and go, wow, what a great decision to book now. Thanks very much for that advice. You've saved me £500 on my family holiday or whatever, because that's what's going to happen as the vaccine, hopefully gets the green light and we see demand really returning incredibly strongly.
Yeah. So that's an important part of the messaging. Get in, get early, while the price is as good as it can be.
Well, the prices are amazing at the moment. The flexibility operators are offering, whether it's cruise, whether it's long haul, whether it's short haul, the flexibility is sensational. Some of the pricing is sensational as well. And, if you're bold, you can take advantage of a great opportunity at the moment, all with the underlying, ability to change, cancel, move, which of course you couldn't in the old world.
Yeah, and we ran an initiative last week, the Holiday to Help Out week via TTG, and there were some fantastic offers actually from suppliers that supported us on that. Just this point on pricing, it's Richard, Miles has said something there, about TUI putting all its prices up, as soon as the market starts moving. It's not quite as straightforward as that, is it? Because price has a huge element to play here in terms of getting the consumer moving again, whether now or whether well into next year.
Yeah, I think, there have been circumstances in the past year where I think certain airlines have been heavily criticised, and quite rightly, where they've really raised prices at very short notice. I think that the point about price is the benefit of the UK travel industry is it's hugely competitive. Yes, you've got large players like ourselves, but you've got many fantastic businesses, small and medium scales, that are operating to certain destinations or covering a more broader range of topics. And that's what I think makes the UK travel industry so strong. And therefore, because of that level of competition, obviously everyone needs to make sure that prices are keen. It's in everyone's interest, and particularly ours. We want to fill our own aircraft. We want to send people on fantastic holidays. So we need to make sure that those prices are competitive. So, a huge part of my team, they work tirelessly every day to make sure our prices are as low as they can be. Of course, if you run out of seats on an aircraft, well, that there is that kind of impact. But my objective is to make sure that we can fill our aircraft, fill our hotels, send as many people on holiday as we can, and therefore we'll need to be very competitive. We'll make sure we've got great deals for consumers all the way through, but also, again, as Miles said, this kind of subject of flexibility is really, really important to customers now. And I think you see more of a shift into what I'd call confidence sensitivity from price sensitivity, and having the trust and the guarantee that their money is safe, that they're going to have as good an experience as they could expect. But if something changes, and it has changed very quickly, they're going to have flexible options that will suit them. Those are now increasingly important, and that's something that we've really tried to lead on.
Yeah, and that's back to Lisa's point as well. That's been a big part of your re-engaging the customer, that promise. Yeah, I mean, I guess in many ways, of course, there's a balance between the pricing that the industry puts out and ensuring the long-term future of the industry and of our travel businesses. sadly we have seen some terrible collapses this year, and we need to make sure that us as travel businesses, have a strong future as well. And what a tough year it's been. But it is exciting actually to pick up this kind of positivity. I knew you three would have a lot to offer this discussion. Looking ahead to next year, I heard what you said, Richard, about maybe people upgrading, spending a bit more money on the big holiday if they missed out on their holiday in 2020. Where are the other big opportunities going to lie? Any particular types of holidays? I mean, maybe Miles, you could talk a bit about the cruise market. I know you're pretty close to that sector, and of course, there's no sector that's had such bad kind of PR and reputational damage, I guess, as cruise. Although the industry is working very, very hard to put that right, isn't it? Is there an opportunity in cruise next year?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, the Princess Cruise in Yokohama was one of the things that visually I still remember from those days back in March when the pandemic kicked off. And if what I know now I knew then, I would be staggered. And that is that what we've seen in our recovery as a business on new sales, they've been led the way by cruise. Cruise has been the best selling and a bigger percentage of our business since July than it's ever been, which shows just how loyal those customers are to cruise and cruise as a market.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think the cruise industry led by Clear have done an exceptional job of they've come out with these protocols that they've agreed for a restart to cruising next year, and I think all of that will build back trust in cruise. But what it's shown me is that I thought a big job would need to be done to educate clients and give them confidence to step back on a cruise ship. But that is certainly not the case from my experience, and seeing just how much customers are prepared to commit and buy. Obviously, this week alone, we've got P&O launching their program for 2022, and sales are incredibly strong for that. And so it is a sector that I might have shied away and thought, don't know how much money we should look at spending on marketing and promoting cruise. Well, actually, the answer's lots, because it's a winning ticket for us as a business at the moment, no doubt about that.
And many cruise ships could be among the safest places in the world. Once all their protocols are in place, I guess, aren't they? They've certainly put so much in place.
Yeah, I think for a long time you were struggling to understand how cruise could restart. But I think with what we've seen with the vaccine hopefully announced tentatively on Monday of this week, and also the rapid testing in Liverpool, you can see that people will get on to a cruise ship having had a rapid test, COVID free. When they get off for shore excursions and things, another test, COVID free. And so you can actually now visualize how the future of the industry will look, and equally how secure that will be in that COVID free environment for customers that will get people booking again. So, that's why I'm so probably more upbeat. Well, I am more upbeat than I've ever been since March, because you can see how the green shoots are building and the industry is starting to get back on its feet again.
Yep. Excellent. Green shoots we like. And just on those cruises, are you selling many for next summer, or is it a longer term plan than that?
It's both. We're not selling any probably before early summer. So May 21 onwards, an awful lot for summer 22. And I think that goes back to the psyche. We're in lockdown in England at the moment. The evenings are long and dark and miserable. And if you've got something in your diary to look forward to, even if it is 2022, it does give you a lift and a feel-good factor. And I think, over the course of the next 3 weeks of lockdown in England, people will be having a long, hard look at their lives and saying, we need something to cheer us up. And nothing does that like a holiday, which is great for all of us.
Fantastic. And Richard, you used to be responsible for Marella Cruises at TUI. Do you think, is TUI pinning a lot of its hopes on cruise for next year and the year beyond?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I still am responsible for Marella Cruise. It's still part of me. No problem at all. So yeah, very, very close to my heart. And just like Miles said, the customer base for cruise is very, very loyal. So, there definitely is no problem from a demand point of view. And I think having spent many hours going through the details of the protocols that the industry with Clear have worked hand in hand with the government as well to come up with. It's an incredible piece of work, the detail that they've gone into. And, once you see it, you really do get the feeling of just how safe an operation those cruise ships are going to be, with or without a vaccine. And the level of standards of cleanliness and testing regimes, et cetera, et cetera. I think the industry has gone above and beyond to correct what I think was a very unfortunate way in which, I guess, the pandemic first started. I think it was caught a little bit in the crosshairs. And we need to remember just how successful cruise has been over the last 10 years. The growth has been, phenomenal. And it's grown not just on those people that are traditional cruisers, but also you now see a pattern across the year. Very much it's a holiday of choice for people, with younger children and families. It's a great way for them to kind of be looked after and see parts of the world. So cruise is a significantly important part to the UK and I business, but also to the TUI group. And it's disappointing at the moment that the FCDO advice hasn't been lifted, but I think we're getting very, very close to that. And I'm hoping that as we exit this lockdown, that's going to get lifted. We've still been bookings for winter, for summer. We've got winter 21, summer 22 now on sale. So, we've been taking bookings for those seasons all the way through, and we've taken, really good volumes into the very future looking season. So it just shows you that people have got confidence in the industry, confidence in our ability to give them a fantastic experience. We're just waiting for that travel ban effectively to get lifted. And I'm sure as well.
Full steam ahead for cruise then into 2021. I think there's some really, really good points there, mate. Lisa, let's just continue this around new opportunities. So outside of cruise, what other opportunities do you see, in your sort of portfolio for next year?
I mean, I think it's going to be really around luxury beach. Certainly for the first sort of 3 quarters of next year. I think the tailor-made side of things will take a bit longer to recover. Because when you look at Asia, Australasia, that it looks quite far off that they're going to be opening up really. So, a big core of our business is beach anyway. We do cruise and we do tailor-made. But really it's the beach side, I think, that, is going to have the biggest sort of opportunity. And just to the destinations that are the safest. So the Caribbean, it's throughout the summer, obviously it was Europe that we were selling, but now it's Caribbean and Indian Ocean. Since we got the Canaries and the Maldives added to the air corridor list, then that area has taken off. So I guess
that point that a luxury beach holiday, the risks are more manageable, are more certain than a more varied tailor-made rate.
Yeah, very much, because you've got very strong protocols in place across a lot of the beach resorts. Certainly in our sector, they're quite incredible, really. I mean, you've got doctors on site at most of the hotels in the Maldives and all the hotels that we're working with in Barbados. They've got a very sleek process, their second testing resort and things like that. So I think that's, and we know our customers. We did a big survey in July. We had about 60% response rate. So we got some amazing data from that. And 85% of the people that responded said that they would have the same amount of money or more to spend on holidays. So, luckily the luxury sector is so resilient. We're really confident. And I think there'll probably be a bit of share shift, and there might be some, and there'll be other acquisitions that come out for sure. So I think you'll see a bit of that within our sector, probably.
Sure.
So yeah, and from where we're sat, I feel that as our business is Elegant Resorts, and if only we've handled it really well. So we should be able to fly when things start getting back on track again. So the relationships with our agents, customers, and suppliers are so strong because of what we do, really. So
good. Yeah. Well, fingers crossed for that. I mean, we've got some questions coming in. I'm just going to throw a couple of these out there. A couple of points around sustainability, actually, which we haven't moved on to yet. But one specific question: to what extent should products in the new world going forward change to be more responsible, sustainable, and accessible? and what work is being done in those areas now. I mean, Richard, you'd be a good place to start with TUI's reputation in this area. Will we see changes in the new world?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've published for the last few years our sustainability approach. We've got the TUI Care Foundation that very much looks to look after the destinations we take customers to, and it's a huge focus for us because it's a huge focus and it's a huge topic for our customers. It's something that we know is very important to them. So we for a number of years now been putting a lot of resources and energy behind, and it's not just about having more fuel efficient aircraft. It is about being very respectful to the destinations that we take people to, and trying to make sure that we're carbon neutral, that we do good in those destinations, but also we're helping customers, we're educating them on the destinations that they're going to as well. So I think for me it's been a growing topic over the last few years that is very much front of mind for us, and I think for the whole industry. And the APTA conference last year was pretty much dominated by sustainability. So I'm not sure that I see anything changing, because I think we're already doing lots.
We're already on that path. Yeah. I mean, I guess there is a danger, and there's another point that one of the WCM virtual audience has made, that as companies struggle and scramble to get back and get customers back, could conversely some of those sustainability concerns, fall by the wayside. Will those things be deprioritized? Any views on that, Lisa, Miles?
I think that I think what Richard says is right. I don't see the pandemic affecting those issues at all, either positively or negatively, simply because there was a focus going very, very strongly in that direction, driven one by customers, but also, in fairness, by the cruise lines. The holiday companies such as TUI were very much sending it in that direction. And I don't think that will change. And the reason I don't think it'll change is I think people that don't act responsibly as a business, like TUI do very, very well indeed, customers will vote with their feet against those businesses. So, maybe short-term saving of cash will not work, because people will vote with their feet and move to people that are operating the right way. And so I don't see the pandemic will change things positively or negatively. The winds of change were going in one direction, which is all good.
Yeah. Do customers ask you about sustainability and responsible tourism when they're booking holidays, or you and your team?
It's a growing conversation. It's still relatively small numbers in terms of people that are doing that, but you can see how it's building. You can see how, you in the media are talking it up much more than ever before, and you can see how it will grow. The number of people that are saying, oh, no aircraft in the sky at the moment, isn't it wonderful what it's doing for the planet, all that sort of stuff. And so, return to aircraft will have to be seeing the signs of them being more fuel efficient, having less impact on the environment. And so, I think it's a one-way ticket on this one, and it will grow.
Good. Sounds like it could be a very positive move forward, post-pandemic. I'm just moving to another question here, and I'd like to ask you this one, Lisa. I know you were talking about the importance of video, a completely different topic now, as you rebuild consumer confidence. We had a question around, are you looking, as a panel, looking to work with more content creators and influencers to promote holidays, to widen your audience? Actually, in some regards, there's a growing cynicism, I think, around influencers, or maybe that's just me. Are they going to be important to you sort of rebuilding confidence, Lisa?
Potentially, yeah. But I mean, I think content is just getting richer from everywhere. Whether it's from your individual suppliers or tourist boards. I just think there's so much content available now. We just have to capitalize on that, really. We definitely work with influencers, so that's just part of our PR plan, really. So that just won't change. But without a doubt, there'll be more video content. I mean, we've pushed more videos out this last 8 months than we've ever done in our entire existence, I think. So
right.
We've got pretty good at doing them. So no, it's definitely opportunities for people there, for sure.
And this area for TUI, Richard, is pretty important these days, isn't it? The whole social media piece in telling TUI's story.
Yeah, and I think what it really comes down to is authentic content. And so I think, businesses, we need to be very careful who we partner with, and actually it's trying to provide customers with as real a view of the holiday that they're going to experience, and that's the most important thing. They want to know exactly what that experience will be like when they're there, when they're making the choices of the holidays that they go on. So the more user-generated content, the more authentic content that customers have got at their disposal, I think the better that they can make those choices. So Lisa's absolutely right. The more content you can provide, it helps customers with those choices, and it helps them understand, the experience that they'll have. And that's very much been the focus for us. And of course, social media continues to play a huge part in the communication strategies with customers. It's been very helpful in the pandemic, being to get messages on a broadcast basis to lots and lots of people. And it's been a way for our contact center teams to manage. But also it's a great way to put out, hopefully, what is really inspiring content on Instagram and other platforms to keep customers and letting them know what experiences they can have.
I think the key is authenticity, isn't it, among this sort of thing? I know, you have to say it's paid for, but it's got to look authentic and not just like the company's putting words or pictures, in someone's mouth or in their social media account. Some great points there. I mean, we are just got a few minutes left, and actually, what I'd like to one more question before I come on to a couple more. I would really like to know about the flexibility you're getting from your hotel partners, as we are finding it difficult dealing with UK hotels. Flexibility from hotel partners in resorts. Does anyone want to talk about that at the current time? We talked about the importance of flexibility and refunds as late as possible. Are your partners helping with that, Lisa?
I mean, certainly in the luxury sector, they've been amazing. I mean, literally, we've communicated with them every step of the way as well. So, we haven't gone into hibernation, as Mal says. So, and we've asked them we've told them sort of these are the things we need to help, and they've wanted to help. So, when we first came up with the flexibility of cancelling right up to departure, back in the summer, we got, I think, about 150 suppliers pretty much sign up to it straight away. And since then, there's been more and more that have just changed their T's and C's. So we're in the luxury sector, I can honestly say we're not having an issue at all, really. From a land perspective, it's been great. So
good to hear. And Miles, from the agent's point of view, and just broadening this question a little bit, are you finding that all suppliers are helping in this area of flexibility and giving the customer confidence?
It's something that's built massively over the last few months, because I think suppliers are in a competitive environment. Richard has a phenomenal number of competitors, so does Lisa, and they can see what competitive advantage this flexibility gives. And so therefore everybody's having to step up. They're having to equally push their hotel partners, airline partners harder to make sure they can secure that for customers, because there's no doubt in the current environment, that is a winning ticket. People will book, and we've seen people will book, but they do want to have it underpinned with their money being safe, first and foremost, but also flexibility of that booking as well. So whatever happens in 2021, vaccine, no vaccine, testing, no testing, they're in a comfortable position to be able to amend and change their holiday without extra cost.
Yes. We're running out of time. I just want to bring this back sort of personally, really, to close. We've heard a lot about your company approaches, and how actually there are plenty of causes for optimism for next year. But what about yourselves as business leaders in the travel industry? It's not always easy, is it? And we've all had our dark moments in 2020. But what have you learned about yourselves, that's going to make you stronger, for the new challenges that come up? Richard, have you got anything on that side?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 points, Daniel, because I guess what we've proven is that for most part we can work almost as efficiently over video conference than we can face to face. But I think everyone, and myself included, we do need that human contact, that interaction, and it can be a lonely time in your bedroom or your kind of dining room table as you're trying to wrap the day. And therefore what I've really learned is that I need to really make sure I have those really positive habits to try and do something that maybe starts the day, go for a run, take the dogs out, but also throughout the day, give myself a break. In the very depths of, I guess, the pandemic, doing 12-hour days back to back is not healthy, and actually really deteriorate my performance as a leader. So to make sure that I look after my own well-being, I've had to get into that routine. And also, we've done simple things like blocking out an hour for everyone throughout the day to make sure that all the teams know they've got an hour just to chill out, take some time back, have a cup of tea, and not be in the kind of day-to-day real rush. So that's been really important. And I think the second thing has been just making the effort to talk to people, because you can't pick up on those natural cues of seeing people interact. It's really making time to have one-to-one conversations that aren't about the list. It's just how people are checking in on them, checking that they're doing those positive things, and also using support networks around. That's, I think, is really important for everyone's mental well-being.
I think that's a great point. We've actually done that on my team at TTG. We've put a buddy system in place with people from different sides of the business, and they just chat for half an hour a week on nothing to do with work, just how's it going, and I think that's really important. I'm sure it helps, Richard, operating from that beach in the Caribbean. Is that your own private island?
Yeah.
Very good. Lisa, anything that you've learned about yourself during the challenges of 2020?
Yeah, a few things. I would say I excel in a crisis. So I guess I've, from everyone being in travel, all three of us on here, we're used to crises, aren't we, in travel? We just are. That's just what happens. But this has been a continual one for about 8 months. So, and just I think I've surprised myself about how resilient I could be. So, and that's back to Richard's point, really, about routine. It's really important that I get up in the morning and get in that forest with my dog for a run. If I don't do it, my days feels different. I can just handle things better. I do, I've been quite big into yoga for the last 10 years, and that's really got me through. I've been doing online Zoom classes, and I've got an app, and it's sometimes only 10 minutes, only 20 minutes, but and if I'm feeling stressed, I go away and do it for 10 minutes. It's a game changer of how I react to a situation. So I really learned to sort of check in with myself a lot more on how I'm.
So a lot from both of you about routines and knowing when. I find that myself sometimes. If you know you're losing focus, take a bit of time out to come back to it. Sorry, but I do have a message. Yeah, I do have a message here saying thank you. Please wrap up. But I'm gonna throw you some miles before we wrap up.
I'll be quick, Dan, shall I?
Tell us about your learnings. Yeah. What have you learned about?
I think it brought me back 14 years to when I started the business, when the first 2 years were the hardest 2 years of my whole life, and it almost brought all that flooding back. And what I had to get through that first 2 years of starting my business was a single-minded determination to win and get to the other side. And that's so much about it. And I think as business leaders, if your head is in the shed and you're completely negative and woe is me, your team are going to reflect that. And so, morale, attitude is so much to get in through to the other side of this COVID pandemic. And for me, I guess it's feeling upbeat every day and making sure everybody knows that you're confident about the way forward. And that's the way it's been.
Yeah, incredibly important as business leaders, to be confident, resilient, and for that to reflect on the whole of our businesses. But that was terrific, actually, and I'm so pleased that we have brought out a lot of optimism for next year. And just going back to the beginning and those graphs, I'm more convinced than ever that the graph's going to be going that way, as we head into 2021. But I'd just like to thank you all, Lisa, Richard, and Miles, for such honest and such passionate contributions to our discussion this morning. So thank you, and let's see you all on the other side.
Hopefully face to face.
Thank you, and thank you for watching at WCM Virtual. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.